Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Welcome everybody, Get Paid for Your Pad, episode 253, coming to you from Stockholm, beautiful Stockholm in Sweden. And today I have a very special guest. I think I say that every week, although he's still very special.
Nolan, but this time you mean it.
This time I mean it. Other times I didn't mean it. Nolan Mondrow, CEO of RemoteLock. Nolan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jasper. It's great to be talking to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about this episode because, I actually tried to get a Smartlock for my Airbnb in Amsterdam a long time ago. And then I found out that I wasn't able to put it on my door. And so that was kind of disappointing. And then I sort of forgot about the whole Smartlock idea. Never really talked about it much. Never really wrote about it much. But that's going to change now because we have you on the show. And you're the expert when it comes to Smartlocks.
Yeah, I hope we change your mind. I think you'll change your own mind, actually, just in view of what's happening right now in the business. But I'd love to dive in and talk about it a little bit.
Absolutely. So we'll get into what exactly RemoteLock does. But let's start with the topic of smart locks in general. Like, why is it important to have a smart lock?
Well, I think, and I'm probably guessing I'm preaching to the choir for a lot of your listeners here, but the Smartlock installation on a unit for an Airbnb host is a real godsend. I mean, this is a trend that's been happening really over the last decade. It's not necessarily a new concept, but we do see a huge increase in people who are converting to smart locks. And the main reason, obviously, if you would think way back in the history of people renting on Airbnb or other listing sites, they had a very serious problem of trying to get their guests in. The old standby of putting a lockbox on the door was used for a while, but here is what I think most people have experienced. Number one, the lockbox keys often don't get put back in the box, and that disrupts the entire process. If you recall, even before people started to be using lockbox frequently, they were doing things as silly as FedExing keys to people who are going to be staying at their property. So that's obviously not going to work in today's environment. But when they graduated the lockboxes, replacing keys was a problem. Not being able to get the lockbox open was a problem, but also having any person that accessed the unit with that key in the lockbox essentially be able to get into the unit because it's just a key that anybody could go copy. Those are the big issues that I think drew people to start looking at smart locks. That's the background.
I've definitely used these very sophisticated strategy of putting the key under the doormat in my Airbnb journey. How do you feel about that? Is that a very good strategy?
Oh, it's an awesome strategy because, in fact, I've stayed at a lot of places for free because of that. That's a joke, of course. No, clearly, if you do that and, it's going to be there for 10 minutes and a friend of yours is coming to feed the dog, that might be okay. But there are many things that you need to do when you're managing an Airbnb that preclude just even leaving a key. The first of which is knowing that the guest actually got in and knowing if anybody got in. And this was a problem early on in the vacation rental industry where when folks were either managing their units themselves or trusting others to service the unit, whether it's cleaning people or people servicing the air conditioning, occasionally they would find that people got into the property that weren't supposed to be there, whether they were, knew it was vacant or what have you. So leaving the key in any capacity, I think, become common knowledge as not the best way to manage a vacation rental unit.
But if somebody wants to break into your house, I mean, the last place they'll look for a key is under the mat, no?
I think you've got them fooled, Jasper. That's absolutely right.
I used to worry about this actually. When my guests were staying at my place in Amsterdam, I used to think, what if they make a copy of my key, and then I have no idea if how many people would have a copy of my key, basically.
Yeah, that's a huge concern, and not just a hypothetical one, because we've heard a lot of horror stories for when people have come and purchased locks from us or services from us, and that is people like a cleaning crew. And I'm not disparaging. I would say the vast majority of service people within the vacation rental space are very reputable and honest. But it's not the honest and reputable people that we worry about, right? Those aren't the reasons why we use technology to help manage the business. So there were instances where a cleaning crew was very familiar with the rental patterns of any particular unit. They knew when it was going to be vacant, and things would happen, like they would let their family member go and stay there for a night for free, or some such thing. And those are some of the things that make even using keys at all a little bit fraught with concern. But there's kind of a double-edged sword in Smartlocks helping to manage vacation rental property. One is obviously the security side of it, but I think more and more, to your point about, many people leave the keys under the mat. I guess the reality is, if somebody really wanted to break into your unit, they would take a rock and smash a window. So the other side of it, we also have to look at, and that seems to be almost as powerful, and that is the convenience of being able to send a code out to a guest, knowing when they got there, canceling that code if they cancel the reservation, the peace of mind around that. I can't tell you, I also am an Airbnb user. I have a property up in the mountains in Colorado, and I can't tell you how frustrating it is or how concerning it is when you've rented a unit out to somebody and you don't know if they safely arrived. And, did they have trouble? Are they having trouble getting in? I mean, that's revenue to you that you're never going to get back. So that's the side of it that I think is almost more powerful than the security side.
Right. You're saying the convenience side and just knowing if your guests have actually arrived is actually more important than the safety concerns.
I would place it in terms of priority. Yeah, I would place it on top of the other. Both are, of course, very important, but the convenience of it is really taking precedence. But it's not just letting the guests in. If you have to, on the fly, let's say something happens to your AC unit and you need to get a service person out into the field, you don't have to go meet them. You can send them a code with Smartlocks, know when they've arrived, make sure they've locked the door. It really is, when people think about home automation or automation in vacation rental, the very first thing and the most important thing that they always want is this smart lock. And it's all around knowing who's in the unit and making sure that people who are in the unit are those that are supposed to be there. So it's a lot of peace of mind. And a lot of this industry, as you know, is peace of mind. I was listening to your one of your recent podcasts when you had this cool company, by the way, this company called Knock Knock, and I forget the last part of it. What was it? Knock Knock something?
Yeah, Knock Knock City.
Yes, that's awesome. So I'll plug them because I just thought they were cool. So they do this. They have a system for guests being able to leave their luggage when they go and rent an Airbnb and they either can't get in yet, or they are after their stay and they want to tour the city for the day. And I was like, yes, these are the types of things and the types of convenience that helps Airbnb hosts act more like a hotel. And we're among that. So other things I would add to the list are, if your room is ready and you told the guests they can't check in until 4 and maybe now it's okay and they can go in, what a great thing to give them as a gift, to say, hey, I know your check-in time's not till 4, but now it's noon, the room's ready, go ahead in, and here's the code to get in earlier. That stuff is gold. I mean, you don't think that guest is just going to love you for that? And personally, I've had that when I travel with my family. I always use Airbnb, and I have 2 young kids. So we always have to stay in a place with a couple rooms. And I can tell you, when you arrive somewhere and you get there at noon and you got 4 hours before you can get in, it's, you got to scrounge to find something to do. So it's just all about making it easier for everybody.
And so when people use smart locks, do you still recommend that people greet the guest in person?
Well, what do you mean? Oh, that they greet the guest in person? Is that what you said?
Well, the reason I'm asking these questions is because I've definitely heard Airbnb hosts telling me that they think it's really important to meet the guests, and so they're saying, oh, those people that are using smart locks, they're not personally greeting the guests, and that's not a good thing. So I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that if you have such a concierge practice, that's part of your process, I think that's fine. I mean, that doesn't necessarily negate wanting to have a smart lock, because you're still going to need to let your cleaning people in, your service people in, and change guest access on the fly for other reasons. But that said, I view that practice as really white glove and somewhat diminishing as the trend. It's sort of akin to how people adopted using e-commerce and purchasing stuff online. At first, everybody was very wary of it. As practices like using smart locks became more popular online, and people were less concerned about the security, and not just the hosts, but also the guests. There are some guests who prefer not to go through the ritual of meeting a host because they just want their private time with their family. So, in fact, we were going to do a little, as a promo at one point. We never did it, but we were going to do a little video clip of all of the different awkward meetings that hosts and guests have when they meet for the first time. In one way, it's a very personal experience when you're vacationing with your family, and so sometimes they don't want to do it. So I guess for those that want to keep doing that as part of their service, it's great. For those that don't, I think is their new options.
Right. Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I used to think, smart locks are for people who don't welcome their guests, but are for people who are remote hosting, right? Where I kind of realized that that's not really the case, because the smart lock still has quite a lot of advantages, even if you do welcome the guests, right? The fact that you have a smart lock doesn't mean that you can't welcome your guests. If you choose to do so, you can still do that, and you still have advantages, like you said, like letting cleaning people in, or just knowing when your guests are inside and when they're not. And in addition to that, not having to worry about the guest, not locking the place, because that's actually happened to me a couple of times in Amsterdam, where my guests were not in my apartment and they forgot to lock the door. So, I've even had situations where I'd go to my apartment after they checked out and the door wasn't locked. And right. So obviously, if you're smart lock, then you can tell. So if your door is not locked, you'll be able to see that on your mobile. Or how does that work? Let's talk about that. So if I install a smart lock on my door, like, how do I see when it's being used, and how do I control the codes? Is there like a smartphone app for that?
There's smartphone apps, and also there are software, web and internet software, SaaS software, also that controls the management of the lock completely. We have lots of systems that we use to make it really convenient, and with tons of integrations to all the other service providers, including Airbnb. So more and more, this process gets automated and easier for the host.
And is it complicated to install a smart lock?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't smart locks that are not complicated, but there are several smart locks that people just DIY. They do it themselves. In many cases, you pull out the existing lock. You don't have to drill any holes or anything like that. You put the new one in its place, hook it up to the internet, and you're good to go. So the provisioning of that stuff has become very, very easy to follow.
And they fit on all types of doors?
They do. There are we offer lots of, for example, the service that we have offers the ability to connect all kinds of smart locks using all kinds of technologies. So if I can throw out some technologies for a second, some you might be familiar with. Wi-Fi is one, of course, you're familiar with, and we manage locks that run on Wi-Fi. But there are also many other technologies that other people use. Bluetooth, one funny one called Z-Wave or Zigbee, and it's possible to manage all these different types of locks through a single portal. And I think more to your question, the lock has to fit the latch. So you mentioned earlier, for example, I can't remember if we were recording or not when we had this conversation, but the issues in Europe where the latch types are different. Is that that's something that you see as a problem with smart lock penetration, for example, in the Airbnb community in Europe, Jasper?
I just remember, I mean, this is a long time ago. I think this is when I started the Airbnb in 2012. And I just remember going on Google and finding a smart lock. And then it turned out I sent photos of my door, and then I basically the response that I got from the company, and I can't remember which company it was. I think it was Lockytron, but they basically told me, sorry, but your situation isn't suitable for our lock.
Yep, and that has been a common complaint. So what we have been doing over the last few years is just integrating all of the types of locks on our single platform, just as a way to solve this problem. Particularly in Europe, it's a big deal because the latches are completely different, and many of the smart locks don't fit them. But as we see more and more smart lock companies coming out with latches that are specific to their city type or country type, that's where you're going to solve this issue. And so it's going to be, we're at the point now where there's almost not a door, for example, that our smart lock system anyway can't manage. So we're trying, that's obviously, if you can't fit it on your door, that doesn't help you at all.
Yeah, that's right. So let's talk about the remote lock and the different type of locks that you guys offer, because I looked at your website and there's a lot of locks. So my first question, if I wanted to install one, like which one do I choose?
Well, the easiest answer to that is you just look at your door and see what type of door it is. If it's an indoor door, if it's an outdoor door, maybe it's something more complicated like a parking garage gate or a garage door or even an elevator. So you start by just identifying what the door type is that you want to control. And then it's easy to select the type of lock given the very specific circumstances. Even in the case of Europe, like we're talking, we have lots of customers in Europe. We have a presence in Europe also that is actively working on making sure we're gathering locks that work through most of the doors in the EU as well as the UK.
And can I send like a picture of my door and just ask you guys like, okay, which one would you recommend?
Absolutely, people do that all the time.
Okay, great.
That's the easiest way. I didn't lead with that because sometimes people, either just want to get on the phone or do it themselves and figure it out. Obviously for us, I'd love people to do that every single time because there's absolutely zero room for error, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. That would make a lot of sense. So what's the coolest lock that you have?
Well, it's definitely our new Wi-Fi stuff. I mean, we have. I should tell you a little back up and tell you what the software is that does that we make, because we have software that manages all kinds of door locks. Any of the technologies that I mentioned earlier, the Z-Wave stuff, Bluetooth stuff like Schlage, Yale, Kwikset can all be managed on our platform. These are popular lock brands. We're working on integrations with a company called Unikey that is behind the technology behind the Kivo, and we do elevators, parking garage gates, all these types of doors. So to answer the question of what's the coolest lock on the platform, I would probably say that it's one of the Wi-Fi locks that we actually make. Probably the new stuff coming out where it's going to be Wi-Fi enabled. The thing that's cool about Wi-Fi is you don't need any other piece of equipment because a lot of the other Bluetooth, etc., you need some other gateway that you have to install. With Wi-Fi, it's just like taking your laptop to a coffee shop and going on the network. You put the lock on the door and then tell it which network to hop on, and you're done. So that's cool. The other pieces of that are, we'll be including a Bluetooth option as well. So if you have that appetite for giving people the ability to open it with their phone, that'll be a possibility as well. So I would say those are the coolest locks.
And can you control multiple locks in an application? Let's say you have like 20 vacation rentals. You have 20 locks. Is there an easy way to sort of control and manage all of them?
Yeah, in fact, we really excel in that in particular, because that was our founding. So you can, in one interface, manage multiple properties. You can put many locks on a single property and still cleanly manage it from within the portal. You can give a cleaning person instant access to 3 or 4 properties at a time with very, very tight schedules within which they're allowed to enter. I mean, you can go even further and get notifications from weird behavior. So cleaning person went in at midnight. That's weird. Notify me of that, So again, it's just a matter of, we're trying to follow the pain of the hosts and make sure that everything we build and everything we do is solving a pain point. If we're not solving a pain point, we don't want to be a gadget. That's the business we're in. So.
And there's 2 things that I forgot to mention. First of all, having a smart lock is a way to provide a self-entry for the guest, which is actually important. As a while back, Airbnb introduced the business-ready badge, and then they made it mandatory for people to offer a self-check-in. So that's one thing that we didn't mention yet. And then also, RemoteLock integrates with Airbnb through the, what's it called? Airbnb Guest Ready, is it?
The business travel ready.
No, I'm
and the host assist. There are 2 programs that Airbnb manage. We participate in both. In fact, I think we were one of the very, very first integrations that Airbnb did with anybody. And what's awesome about that, and we have this not just with Airbnb, but multiple listing sites and software, if people use software to manage their business. But the way it works, your guests are probably familiar with, but when a guest books on Airbnb dips into our system, and then we can either instantly send the door code to the guest, and that code will only work when the guest's vacation starts and it expires when it ends, or we can have a delayed send, so the guest will get the code 24 hours, for example, before they're to go to the property to solve that problem. And that's sort of part of the host assist side of it. Now, the business travel ready side is really interesting because, as you know, Airbnb is really going after the business market, and they had some requirements for that. One was, I think you have to have an iron too, which which makes sense, I guess. And then you have to have Wi-Fi. One of the things that you also must have if you want to be involved in the business travel ready program is 24/7 access, which of course means some sort of smart lock solution. So it's definitely something they're touting. They recognize how important it is, especially for business travelers. And so it's something that we're really happy to participate in, and they do some good work around promoting that.
Awesome. And for the people who want to buy one of those awesome smart locks, we have good news because there's a discount. Use code GP25, GP25, and you get, not surprising, $25 off. So go ahead and use that code if you do want to get one at remotelock.com. And not only do you get $25, so do I. So that will help me pay for this production of this podcast. So it's really
you got to pay
win-win.
the bills.
What do you get out of this, Nolan? Do you get something too, or no?
Me personally, I get a big smile on my face as we help more hosts.
Awesome. So it's win-win-win.
Yeah, it really is. I think I will tell you this, and it's not just bragging from my point of view in the industry. When we talk to people, it's almost like we don't sell our system. I mean, it's almost like we're answering their question. Does it do this? Yes. Can I get my guessing? Yes. Can I be notified? Yes. So we just happen to be in this perfect spot where the product we're offering is in such demand that it's just explosive, because when you've actually hit a pain point that somebody has, then you almost don't have to try to sell them. They get it. And I think most of your listeners probably understand that. Many of them, I'm sure, already have smart locks on their doors.
What do these things cost?
Smart locks can range anywhere from, I think I've seen them at $150 all the way up to $600, $700. So it depends on what you want for your particular use. But it's not an expensive price point to get in and start using it. Really, I think the convenience that people get out of it is so apparent that they're happy to pay whatever little more it costs to get a smart lock versus a regular lock. There's also, the other reasons that people think about it, even if they're managing multiple properties, is you take away a lot of the rekeying costs, obviously the security stuff that we talked about. So there's actually an ROI in using smart locks.
Right, and I'm looking at the website. They're priced at about $250 to about $450. That was basically one night booking at my Airbnb. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely have used it if it was possible. And honestly, it probably was possible, but maybe not through that company that I inquired through.
So yeah, Jasper, you just need to send me a picture of your doors.
Yeah. I don't own the house anymore, but I can send you a picture of my house in Colombia.
You got something in Thailand too, right? We have we've got our software translated into Japanese, and we have a lot of Asian activity going on too. So don't assume that just because your property is in Thailand that it's not possible to do it there.
Right. Awesome. I'll let you know when it's done. It's under construction right now, but yeah. Anyway, great, man. So for those who are interested, go to remotelock.com. I'm sure people can ask you questions as well if they have. Use the code GP25. And anything else that we should share with the listeners, Nolan?
No, I just think it's an exciting time to be in this industry. It's very tumultuous, and we're having a lot of fun just expanding this as a business. So the more the merrier. If you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, "Gosh, I don't know if I want to get into it," get into it. It's a good thing to supplement income and build some wealth. Good stuff.
Absolutely. All right, Nolan, thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it. And it was a fun conversation. And I know you guys are based in Denver, Colorado, a pretty active Airbnb community. A lot of activity going on there, not just in terms of hosting, but also in terms of the entrepreneurship. So definitely,
there is.
Yeah, definitely a place that I would love to visit and maybe go skiing.
You got to come out, and I know you're wrapping up. Sorry, I keep stepping on your wrap up line. But I was going to say you definitely got to come out. I wanted to throw one anecdote since you brought up Denver. That we attend the local Airbnb meetups, and a couple of years ago when we started going to these things, we asked people how many of you are using any sort of smart lock, and 2 people out of the 40 or 50 that were at the meeting raised their hand. And we were just there recently, again, participating, asked the same question, and probably 40 to 50% of the people now raise their hand. So you can see that the technology, I think Denver is a good early adopter place. So you're hitting the nail on the head with that. Sorry, Jasper, go ahead, close us out.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try and close it now. I'm just going to press the stop record button, and that's it.
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody for listening, and of course next Wednesday there's going to be another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Until then,
get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.